In a number of interviews that we've done over the years with performers who've been at the old My Father's Place on Bryant Avenue and at the current venue, we've noticed a theme regarding the Beatles. Some people watched the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, some were in the audience, some were influenced, some people bought Beatles records, some people owned record stores and sold Beatles albums. But the Beatles has been an incredible theme. We've had artists such as Frank Grillo, who played with George Harrison. We've had Denny Laine, who, of course, played with Paul McCartney in Wings, and countless others who, in one way or another, had some connection to the Beatles. With us right now is Robert Grayson, who performed at the original My Father's Place and happened to have been at Shea Stadium when the Beatles played there. So, Robert, thank you for your time for this segment. What was it? So how old were you when this happened?
I think I was 6.
Okay. And how did a 6-year-old, did you get on the subway all by yourself? And how did you get to Shea? Who took you there?
No, I think my mother drove us there. I think it was my brother, Lee, who had a band at the time, a high school band. And, I think we got a ride there. I don't even remember if one of my parents, I don't think my parents attended, but I do remember that there was a desperate attempt to agree not to scream when the concert started. And that was like trying not to fall asleep when your dentist says count back from 100, like it just was, it was tribal, man. No, it was very powerful.
So what was it like as a 6-year-old? Were you all wide-eyed and in awe of all the people and just it was like almost 60,000 people.
6 or 8 or whatever. By the time I got there, I was already I was very lucky. There was a lot of great music around my house. Some Latin jazz, all kinds of different stuff, show music. And my brother brought home the Beatle record. I remember looking at the thing, turning around, I want to hold your hand. And I was like, whatever power is coming out of that statement, I want to know more about it. And we just became huge Beatle fans. And, every night when it was new album night, my brother was home with wide-eyed eagerness to get me in the car and get to the record store.
So what year was this?
So I was, it was a dream come true to attend one of the shows. I guess there was some anticipation that it was going to be a rare opportunity. At least it seemed like heaven.
Now,
to get to go.
Do you remember what year this was? It was obviously in the 1960s.
66? I don't know. I'm not a scholar, so
okay.
I don't know. I think it's 56. I guess I was 10 in 66, so 64 maybe.
All right. Now, do you remember the price of the ticket? I remember Joe Ruffano, who is...
I just remember that, first of all, the craziness of people, that's the main thing I remember, was people jumping over the walls to try to get to the Beatles and be closer. And it was kind of that same madness, or passion, I should say, passionate response, that people just couldn't control themselves, and they jumped, and then the cops would chase them. It was kind of like a little sport, almost like capture the flag with uniforms. They would run, and I don't know, people would jump from the center field thing. It was, and the Beatles also, so people were screaming, this chaos was going on, and the Beatles were playing to like a shore vocal master. I think people have probably seen on the net the pictures of the two guys running the entire system. But it was a thing. It was a spectacle.
I know that Joe Ruffano, who's with the Liverpool Shuffle, told me during an interview that the ticket price was around $5, and it included a number of different acts in addition to the Beatles. Do you remember other performers on the bill?
It's not in my memory. Okay. I think there might have been.
Okay. Now, Cousin Bruce, who was also a guest on our show, was one of the people who introduced the Beatles. Do you remember any of that, or were you too young?
No, I remember Cousin Brucey. Sure, my mother managed my brother's band for a while, so we were always listening to the radio, and I do remember him introducing him.
Now,
I believe I definitely remember him being involved and them doing a lot of publicity for the show.
Now, if you were like, say, 6 years old or so.
Eight.
Obviously, you weren't as tall as you probably needed to be to see overall the people. How did you manage that?
When I got to the sign that says, "To see the Beatles, you must be this tall," I think I stood on my tiptoes. No, there wasn't any. It just seemed that everything was very tame back then. It wasn't like I was going into the pit of a Grateful Dead concert. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So it was all reasonable and proper, except for the people jumping over things. I think the real kernel of the concert was 60,000 people or whatever it is on the same page, not competing with each other, enjoying something all together. Wow, that was really powerful. That was super powerful. Just everyone good, thumbs up, happy, ecstatic, and it was, cumulative with, a mass bunch of people. At a baseball game, you got one side sad and one side happy.
Were you able to hear the show, given all the screaming and crowd noises?
It wafted through. It was depending on whichever way the wind blew, you might catch a bridge or a couple of lines of a chorus here or there, but you could recognize what song they were playing pretty much. But
now, what did you think of the way the Beatles looked? As far as they were dressed and their haircuts and.
The whole thing was a magic combination of look, style, the statement. The whole thing worked perfectly, and the guys played really well together. It's a band's band. Again, I can't think of a band that is quite as connected on another level than perhaps for me, the Grateful Dead or something like that. But
what were your takeaways from the show? Like when you left, what were you thinking? What still resonates with you today?
They made people happy. They created an event. It's like, if you think of Bill Graham and stuff like that, what can we do for fun? What can we do that's good? So they had a sense of fun and a sense of joy, and they were bloody good creators. They were divine downloaders of some amazing, whoa, where did that come from? Material. So, and they played well. So the whole thing was like the perfect, the perfect vortex of Beatleness. So, the takeaway was that, that can be created. If people put their mind to it and they go, let's all do something great together. Relationships, emotionality between band members or whatever that I've lived with. That's kind of separate from the magic that happens between certain constellations of individuals. And that was just an amazing vortex that we're all blessed to have, inspiring, a bar to ascend to or to, try to equal, which I think is possible if we let go of our baggage. It's an inspiration, and it most certainly is a what could be. This can be. Humans can do this.
Ultimately, you became a musician. How much of the Beatles had an impact on that decision process and what you ended up playing as a musician?
Oh, it was huge. I mean, I'm motivated by energy and how energy works, and very into Tesla in the spiritual sense, and their mastery of alchemy in a way of the energies that they put into their records that flowed out into arrangements and compositions, but more, that was what was so inspiring, as I said before, that you can do that with Grateful Dead. And both bands are similar in that they both played a lot together. They had a certain synchronicity that they nurtured, and that, so in what I do, I try to bring that energy forth and inspired by them, for sure.
Now let's bring this to My Father's Place. At some point in time, you ended up playing at My Father's Place at the Bryant Avenue location. Can you
I
talk?
I did.
Was it only the Psy and the Clones, or were there other bands?
No, it was Flying and the Clones opening for Fluorescent Leech and Eddie. Okay, so it was, and Flying and the Clones was a weird, a really great but weird art rock band that had its moment in a flash. But the Fluorescent Leech and Eddie were hysterically funny, and they had a great band. So they had funny, weird parody songs, and redone commercials to Led Zeppelin songs, and but they had, I think, Meatloaf band or something like that, and the whole thing just was. It was like a little Zappa-esque, but their own thing, and perhaps a little bit more warm-hearted, but a lot more playful. So it was a great night.
In addition,
I learned a lot.
Say it again.
I learned a lot from watching them.
Now, in addition to your performing at My Father's Place, did you go to shows?
I went to quite a few shows. I think I saw Taj Mahal, saw Return to Forever. I think that a lot of the energy that was around, that was inspired by the Beatles and some of those other bigger bands, flowed out. That, hey, this is what it's about. I think a lot of that energy made it into My Father's Place, for sure.
Great. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time. And
you bet. It's a pleasure to talk about this. It was a honor and a gift to have been there, so to kind of share some insights is wonderful.
So what we'll do, we'll put this in the time capsule so that for generations to come, we could actually have an artifact of both the original My Father's Place, the current My Father's Place, Brilliant. And the whole Beatles inspiration from someone who was there in the 1960s. So thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.